Hello, everybody. Good evening to those who are in the evening and whoever is in his time, morning or whatever, afternoon. So we say hello to everybody, and we are back here in our show with a new guest. She's from Canada. Her name is Elizabeth, and she will tell more about herself. So, welcome, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much for having me, author.
So,
So a
Elizabeth,
little bit about myself.
yes, please.
Yep. So a little bit about myself. I'm just the everyday woman that serves tea. As you can see in the background, that's all I do is I serve tea. And when I serve tea, I serve teaching educational awareness. So it's a different type of tea. It's a strong personal tea of your personal story coming to the table.
Okay. That is one of the things that you do, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
I'm also
what
an
else?
international.
What else do you do?
I'm also an international speaker. I'm an author, best-selling author on Amazon. I'm working on a collection that will be coming out in the spring as well with the TEA, so look forward for that. And I'm just a connector. I like to connect the dots, connect people, and just share stories, personal stories of overcoming stuff. So I'm a survivor of extreme abuse, and I'm an advocate for mental health, and um, grief and abuse. And I also speak on humanitarian rights, human rights, and global peace for United Nations altogether.
Okay, so that's good. It's an honor to have you then in our show, not just. Okay, so what would you like to share with our audience today?
And well, when I seen your show, I watched a couple of your episodes, and I really love the flow of the authenticity of sharing the story, making a difference. And I wanted to get my story out there to share, not to give hope to others, not to give up. Because when people read my stories in the Sacred Hearts Rising collection, a lot of them are like, "Oh my goodness, you've been through a lot. How are you still doing what you're doing? How are you able to be so kind after all of the things that have come your way?" And I've always said that I don't want to give anybody what I received in life. So all the abuse that I was given, I don't want to give it to others. I want to give them the opposite. So I'm that sugar that instead of that salt. So I don't like to burn the wound. I like to sweeten the wound by just serving you a cup of tea and showing you authenticity and that we can still be real and raw, even though we've gone through things. So.
Okay, so you said that you are a speaker as well. You speak about what is the subject mostly?
I speak mainly on tea, as everybody can see in the background. I'm the tea lady. But the tea is my personal story, the personal story of the little girl that overcame a lot of abuse, a lot of abandonment and betrayal, and a lot of grief. And what I try to do is I try to serve a strong tea of the tea on it, not in it, because when we're in our teas and we get bitter, we get stale, and the tea gets really, really bad tasting. So when we're on our tea, we're actually pouring the tea, we're actually spilling the tea, and we're making a difference by letting go of that hurt and that pain. So I speak mainly on my personal story, like my grief and my abuse to that.
So let's say that in the cup you have a kind of a tea which was bitter, and so you want to change that. You spill that one and you put a new one, right?
Yeah.
Very good. So is it difficult to change the tea from the old one to the new one?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like the old tea was scared, living in shame, living in guilt, and that. And when I started writing, and writing has saved my life. When I started writing, then I noticed that I had to spill. I had to start over, fill my cup again. And my cup is not always full. My cup is always just before the rim, before it gets ready to spill. So I like to do a lot for others to show them that even though I've been through a lot, doesn't mean I can't help another person. And by sharing my story, I hope that it helps another person who's going through that struggle, who might be going through that abuse or going through that loss of a child, because I've lost a child, or just mental health, the stigma around mental health. You look fine, you look good, you don't look sick. Like, there's a lot of that stigma there. So I'd like to share that. So I speak on that mainly, and I share, that's the type of tea that I share. And when I do What is Your Tea with my guest on my podcast, is I get them to open up from within. And I ask all my guests, what is your tea? And when I say, what is your tea? I'm looking for three words from the T, the E, and the A that represents their tea, because I can't serve their tea because that's their story. It's just like I can't serve your tea, author, because that's your tea, right? That's your journey. That's your story. So what I try to do is I try to show people that we all have a story and it all matters when we start being authentic, because we need to bring that authenticity back. There's a lot of people that feel that if they don't tell the whole story, it's a good story. But we want the whole story. We want to know the good, the bad, the ugly, what created your story. And that's why I really wanted to come on your platform, was because just this, my story stood out to me. So
I really appreciate for coming, and also that is for me. I'm really grateful, that now we can share some stories that they will never be heard, maybe, you know, because there are many people that they have their stories and they think that they are the only ones that are suffering from this, and and when they
yeah,
hear that there is somebody else, even in Canada or in other countries, so they say, "Oh man, I'm not alone." So somebody else has gone through the same. So how can I change my life? How can I change my tea, as you say? So
yeah.
that's really great. Yeah, I'm really grateful to meet people like you that share their own stories. Yeah, the real stories. I love that. By the way,
I'm
everybody.
the real raw girl. Like that's all I can offer. I can't offer a disguise or a mask. I'm
Mhm.
really raw and authentic with myself, and I'm really uh, open, because I feel that we need more openness in the world. We need those raw stories, and it's like you said, author. Like uh, if we're in another country, we want to know that it's not just Canada that's going through this. We want the whole world to know that abuse is in the world, grief is in the world, mental health is in the world, and there's stigma between the three subjects. Because they try to connect them. So somebody who has mental health, oh well, they come from poverty, they come from poor. No, they don't. There's rich people out there that have mental health. So let's take that stigma away, and let's start sharing the real stories, that we all have a story, no matter what our race is, what our status is in life, or what country we're living in. We all have a story that makes a difference.
Exactly, exactly. So, so you are a speaker, we said, and also you speak about humanitarian. In Please tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, in 2020, I had the honor of becoming the Canadian ambassador for the Global Peace Challenge 2020. It was a project that brought over 60 different ambassadors around the world together. And we worked on peace projects, a music project with peace. Um, and we just wanted to bring more light, because there was so much heaviness in 2020 with COVID and everything. And we many of us stayed connected, and many of us had different projects that we support one another. And in people see peace as it's automatically holding hands, kumbaya, everything is fine. That's not what peace means. Peace means just looking out for your neighbor, looking out for the person across the street that might be struggling, that might have fell down, pick them up, you know, and not have to have a reward for it. That's what peace is. We look at peace as war and no war, but peace within ourselves. It needs to start within us. So that's what we did as global ambassadors of the Global Peace Project, is we actually showed that we had peace within ourselves, within our stories, within the work that we do with others.
So there's a lot to talk about that, but we will just skip a little bit. So we wish we hope to have you again, so we'll talk more about this stuff a little bit more in details. And then you started to write books, basically, right? You're a writer,
Yes.
co-writer as well. And please tell us a little bit about your books, where you have poured some of your bitter tea, and when you change it on the way. Please tell us.
Well, I've written in a bunch of anthologies because I was scared to write my own story. I wrote my first story in 2017 when I started following this lady called Brenda Hammond. And she wrote this book called Hear Me. And as a little girl, I always wanted to be heard because I was being abused. And so I reached out to Brenda. And Brenda put this anthology together. First, she was looking for grandmas who had lost their grandchildren. And then she changed it up and she wanted to have different stories. So I reached out to her and I said, well, do you think my story matters? And she said, absolutely. So then I started and I wrote in book 1, book 2, book 3, and book 4. So I'm the author for Sacred Hearts Rising for each book. And I do have them here. So if you want me to show. So I'll just explain a little bit. So book 1, we have, no, that's not book 1. Book 1 is Sacred, is the story of me as a child being abused. So I wrote about child abuse, and the story is called The Broken Porcelain Doll. Then in book 2, I believe it's this one, book 2, I wrote about the grief of my children. So the grief of losing my children through foster care because of domestic violence and that. And a stillborn child. So my daughter passed away. So I wrote about grief. And then in book 3, I wrote about mental health, all the labels and stuff that I was given within my life. And this anthology also has men's stories in it. So it's not just women. Okay. And then in book 4, I wrote about domestic violence and the full circle of coming. So each book has a part of Miss Liz. Instead of one book, you have little pieces and bits and that. And then I also wrote in another anthology called The Unstoppable Gems. And in here, I wrote about my life as a butterfly, all the finding my wings and the transformation of the wings and that. So, and then I wrote another anthology. So they're all on Amazon. You can find them all on Amazon. The only one you can't find on Amazon is The Fear and Triumph that I wrote with 50 ladies around the globe. And all we did was kind of share what we did when COVID hit, how we created a new platform for ourselves. Miss Liz was started in 2015, but my virtual Teatime started in 2020. So it was just a complete transformation. But my teas actually saved me, and I got to meet incredible people from around the globe, because I don't just have people from Canada or United States. I have people from all over. I've had over 40 countries, 175 Teatimes. So it's the stories really matter. And that's why I really wanted to be here today, was because just the background, my story, right? We need to hear my story. Like, everyone has a story.
Yeah, exactly. So going all this bedtime, let's say, so your when somebody sees your life, he said, "Oh, it has been a very, very, I can I say the word miserable, very dark, and all this, but you didn't have anything nice, something happy, something good, something cool, something fun, was there in all these taste that, let's say."
Yeah, as a child, I had a really hard life. A lot of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, a lot of abuse. And then at the age of 18, I was sold by my father to my ex-husband. And then it was just more abuse, more domestic violence and stuff like that. So it was just always abuse. So when people read my story and they see who I am and the work that I do and the countries and people that I work with, they're like, how are you that person and not this person? Like, how are you able to be so kind to the world when the world wasn't kind to you?
That is really amazing, yeah. You have to have a lot of grace in your heart. Otherwise, it's not easy to take out something good in all this bitterness, let's say that.
Yeah.
So let's say that you have the sweet for the end when you write the books, and so your life is completely, and you still, I mean, you are healed, but also you still clean up, let's say, and you become a more peaceful person, and also more graceful, and also more loved person, right?
Yeah.
Because you climb up the stairs, the stairs, as we say.
Well, and you're never fully healed, right? Like when people say, Miss Liz, you're healed. And I'm like, no, it's a life journey, because there's been a life of damage that has been done. a lot of trauma, and trauma is a life journey. It's a life job to fix that. You know, when a lot of people say, well, I'm healed, I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. You know, we might have that band-aid, but that band-aid is eventually going to come off. Somebody's going to trigger us. There's going to be traumas. You know, it might be the weirdest thing. It might be somebody walking by with a certain cologne on, or, you know, an environment, a country that you go to that will bring back that flashback. So healing is a life journey. And that's why our story has to keep continuing, right? We have to keep writing, and we have to keep staying on our story, you know, not in it, but on it.
Okay. So how many books have you written in total?
7. And yeah, and there's more coming this year. So
yes,
yeah.
Up to now. I like that. Up to now.
Up to now.
Yeah, exactly. On the way. We are on the way.
On the way. There's more coming.
Sorry. So, what is the best compliment that you have taken up to now from your readers?
Oh. I guess I was given this word and I didn't know what the word meant because I didn't have a chance to have education when I was younger. And I was told that you're such a tenacity, you're full of tenacity. And I was like, oh my goodness, what does that mean? Like, are you insulting me? Like, are you calling me mean? Are you? And then I really had to look up the word, and I was like, oh, okay, that's me. I keep rising. I keep continuing on. No matter what bad comes my way, I say, you know what? No, you don't got me. You might got me for a day or two, but when I get up, run. Like, I'm that one that when Miss Liz comes, Miss Liz is coming hard. So, and I think that's what I want to show people what my story is. It's okay to fall. It's okay to break, but it's also okay to get up and continue on.
Exactly. That's a very nice slogan. If we can, if we can say that, huh? It's
Yeah.
very nice. So, you said that your books are not just for ladies, but also they are for gentlemen as well, right? But
Yes.
mostly, let's say, from the eyes of a lady, as you have seen it with your eyes, or better to say, from the experience of a lady. You don't know, let's say, so much the other part, how the abuser feels when he does what he does, or you know. So, do you think that usually the abusers, they don't read books, okay? They are not so
Well,
smart.
they do if they want to see if you're speaking or spilling the beans, because when you're being abused, right, you're not supposed to speak out. You're not supposed to share that, because then you're taking that power away from the abuser. They no longer have control. They no longer, and then they don't like that, so they'll read the books. I've had my abusers read my books, and I've also had my abusers threaten me that they were going to come and get me for what I said. And now I'm no longer that scared little girl that I was when I was younger. I'm like, you know what? It's out there, and it's a best-selling international book. So unless you're going to go to every country in the world to get the book, the story's out there and the truth is out there.
I like an expression where they say, don't mess with the best, die like all the rest. You could do it earlier, but not now. Don't mess with the best.
And that's one thing I wanted to do, author, is I wanted to really have my truth out there before anything did ever happen to me.
Do you think that you have let something that you haven't written in the book, in the books, let's say, that you want to add to the books, to any of the books, do you think?
Oh, there's so much to add, but there was so much abuse and so much trauma that eventually one day I will share more. But it's a really heavy story, and I don't want heavy. I don't want a heavy tea. I want a light tea. I want to show that, yes, I had a lot of heavy in me, but I'm not in that tea. I'm on the tea. So I want to spill my tea. I want to spill that pain. I want to release the pain. And like my Oma always told me when I was little, is when she served me my first cup of tea, she said, Liz, I want you to sit, reflect, recharge, and release. And I was like, okay, I don't understand these words because I was only little. But as I got older, I understood what she meant. Don't hold on to it. Because they hurt you doesn't mean you have to hold on to it. Forgive them, but that doesn't mean that you have Sunday dinner with them. You know, and you can forgive your abusers. You can forgive people who have done you wrong, but that doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with them, because you're forgiving for yourself. You're not forgiving for them.
Yes, I've heard it also from other people, and also sometimes in myself, when somebody hurts you and then you don't want to forgive him or her, and it's not, sometimes the other person, he doesn't care for that. It's over for
No.
him, it's like he doesn't even care.
Yep.
But for you just get stuck in that one
Yep.
because you haven't forgiven him or her. This doesn't mean that I have to take him to jail, I mean, but I have
Yep.
forgiven you as a person. It's like in my relationship with him or with her, you are done for me. I have nothing, anything to ask from you and say, okay, I've forgiven you. Just get away,
Yep.
and that gives you relief, right? And yeah, I agree.
Well, it's that releasing, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
that spilling of the tea and starting over.
yeah,
You don't need to be that tea that they wanted you to be.
exactly.
A lot of my families wanted me to be that broken tea that couldn't get back up. And because I keep rising, they're like, God, that girl just stay down? And I'm like, no, like I'm coming back up. Like you might have me down for a day or two, but like I said, like I always rise. And a lot of my abusers are like, God, that girl just does not stay down. And I'm like, no.
Very strong. Yeah. Okay, Liz, because also the time is going, and I would like to hear something which is yours. You said that my mom used to say this to me, and I didn't understand it when I was a little girl. I understood it later. So, what would you like to say to our audience? Something that is yours that you want to advise or whatever you think.
Well, like I tell my children, just be yourself, be your authentic self, show the real, the raw, the ugliness, the good, the bad, the ugly, because we all have the good, the bad, the ugly story. Everyone has gone through something, and just be you, be true to yourself, and serve your tea. That's all you can do, is just serve you. And for me, it's tea. And for everyone out there, we all have a tea. So just serve your tea.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for the tea and for everything that you shared with us, but also for the books. I'm really grateful for all the books that you have shared with us, your story, and it's really great, and also to talk to you in person. And I hope we'll see you again.
Absolutely.
It's
You
just the
don't get rid of
beginning,
me
huh?
that fast, right? It's
Yeah,
just beginning,
it's just the
beginning of
beginning.
the story.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So our stories, they keep on, even every day we have new stories in our lives. So
Yep.
thank you very much again.